This is KTN Prime. Good evening and welcome. My name is James Smart.
And I'm Betty Kialo. A look at our top stories tonight. Deadly revenge, 15 killed in Mwingi land dispute.
Walikuwa wanachimba dhahabu, lakini baadhi yao walikufa.
Not so golden. 6 miners die of carbon poisoning in Migori.
As a government, we are ready to talk, but we cannot talk on the streets.
Let's talk Uhuru's passionate appeal to striking teachers.
The bill in its current form cannot be passed. We will oppose it, but we are going to bring a comprehensive amendment.
Not enough. Why court won't back the changes to VAT bill. Good evening once again. We begin tonight in Mwingi, where at least 10 people have been killed and 3 others injured following a land dispute between 2 families.
Now, one family is said to have hired a gang to attack its land rivals, but as Angel Katuse reports, the revenge attack has left a village in mourning.
Penina Munyoke watched in shock as police collected 4 bodies from her compound, that of her husband and her 3 children. The 4 killed by a gang that raided their home in Nyanya village of Mwingi in Kitui County around 1 a.m. Thursday, armed with machetes. Killing the 4 on the spot, she escaped with a head injury. Meters away, 2 other families mourning their loved ones. The same gang is said to have raided the families. In the first home, the gang killed a man and his wife, and in the second home, they killed a famous businessman, his wife, and 2 male workers.
Kitendo litendeka usiku, na kwa sababu communication ni mbaya, barabara hakuna, simu hakuna, polisi hawangeweza kupata habari.
It is not yet clear what was the intention of the killings. However, some witnesses say that a man close to the affected families, who was recently released from committee maximum prison, could be behind the killings. It is alleged that the ex-convict had threatened the families affected, claiming they were behind his imprisonment so they could acquire his piece of land. Others said that the families had a land dispute and that one family hired a gang to attack the others, and this was a revenge mission.
We've also come to discover that there are other 2 bodies who are lying somewhere which we believe are part of that, so that makes 12. And then the people also pursued, using the footprints, pursued the suspects to a place called Malioni in Waita, and 3 of them were killed, have been killed already. So that makes a total of 15 people who have died.
Mwingi Police Boss Simon Biri says investigations are underway. Angel Katuse, KTN Prime.
Well, in Migori County, 6 gold miners died and 3 others were admitted in hospital in critical condition after suffocating in a mine in Suba West. The miners are said to have suffered from carbon monoxide poisoning at the Arombe gold mine. Rita Tinina has more on the tragedy that has also left 3 miners unaccounted for.
Arombe, Suba West, Migori County. Villagers hoping for the best but fearing the worst. Volunteers descend into this gold mine hoping to find someone alive. 3 miners are said to have run into trouble after running out of air inside the mine on Wednesday afternoon.
Kuna vijana ambao walikuwa ndani, walikuwa wanapiga maji. Baadaye ripoti ikakuja kwamba wamekosa hewa huko chini, sababu wanafanya na hii mashini ya kawaida, na huko ndani hawakuweka ile pipe ya kutoa moshi ndani.
When word went round that the miners were suffocating, fellow miners went to their rescue. It was a case of a rescue mission gone bad.
huwa watu wao wanapenda, na wakisikia jambo kama hilo wanakuja haraka kuokoa wengine. Sasa waliokuja kuokoa wengine ndio walifariki.
Villagers and Red Cross personnel managed to retrieve 6 bodies. 3 miners were rescued alive and rushed to hospital. But some miners remained unaccounted for.
Kuna wawili ama watatu walibaki ndani.
Mining is one of the economic activities in Migori County, but there are challenges.
The miners here are still using obsolete equipment and primitive methods of mining. Primitive in the sense that they go deep down there. At times they use explosives.
The new county government will need to look into ways of streamlining the mining activities to enable locals exploit the natural resources in safe environments. Rita Tinina, KTN.
Quite unfortunate to State House now, where President Uhuru Kenyatta early today made an impassioned plea for striking teachers to resume work. The president wants the teachers to respect the industrial court's decision requiring them to call off the strike. The statement came hours after the Teachers Service Commission moved to court seeking to have the teachers' union cited for contempt of court. KTN Samogena has these details.
The deadlock in the teachers' strike was a subject of a cabinet meeting at State House chaired by President Uhuru Kenyatta. And when he emerged from the executive's meeting, the president pleaded with teachers to respect the judiciary's order of returning to work to initiate negotiations to unlock the impasse.
I really, once again, with all due humility, plead with our teachers to resume their responsibilities and to allow their representatives to sit down with government in accordance with the ruling of our own court and to finalize these discussions.
The president says some of the demands by teachers are being worked on by the Salaries Review Commission as they cut across the whole public service.
There is no reason for our children to suffer, for parents to suffer, when people are ready to sit down and discuss.
Meanwhile, NAT rival union Kuppet struck a deal with government early Thursday morning. In the deal, Kuppet union members will benefit from a commuter allowance of 11.5 billion shillings, responsibility allowance of 3.6 billion shillings, but 1.4 billion leave allowance is still in contention.
Compliance with the rule of law, obedience to court orders is in themselves is not cowardice.
And the teachers know that they have engaged me personally in the past. And everything that we have discussed with them, as a government, we fulfilled. So therefore I see no reason why we would not be able to find a proper solution to the issues still pending before us.
At the same time, the Teachers Service Commission has moved to court seeking the judiciary to initiate contempt of court proceedings against NAT officials for defying the industrial court order, demanding that teachers return to work.
It is, in our judgment, a contempt of court, and the machinery set out in the law has already been kicked off, and you will be hearing about more of that sooner.
There is no deal in the ongoing teachers' strike as the president seeks a diplomatic approach to end the strike, inviting teachers on the negotiating table. Well, as the president seeks way to end the strike, teachers on the other hand are on a higher ground. Samogina, KTN, State House.
Let's keep with that conversation. Let's move over to James Smart, who's standing by with NAT Secretary General Mudzo Nzili. Smart, over to you.
All right, thank you very much, Betty. In studio with me here at the summit is the man who can call off the strike. It is the Acting Secretary General of the Kenya National Union of Teachers, Mr. Mudzo Nzili.
Yes.
Before we just get too wordy with this, Mr. The President has spoken.
Yeah.
Are teachers going to go to work tomorrow?
The President has spoken, and when we were on a strike, presidents used it to talk. And the strikes of teachers are never called off. by presidents. They are called off by the instructions from the Kenya National Union of Teachers National Executive Council, who are the owners of the strike, and by extension, the teachers who are the members. That is the general.
So right now where we are, the president and the government says we are ready and willing to negotiate, drop the strike, come to the negotiating table. What's difficult with that?
We appreciate that they are willing to negotiate. But we indicated demonstrated our willingness yesterday when we went there, and we expected to be given something on the table to say, amen, this is what we are bringing to you. After 2-3 hours of engagements between us and the government, they sought for a break to go and consult. And we were left there in a very celebrate mood, thinking that we were going to, in fact, we had even started calling our office to prepare to invite the National Executive Council in anticipation that we were going to get a deal that we could present to the National Executive Council and seek for authority for us to call off the strike. But we were surprised when they came back after a break of about 3 to 4 hours, when they returned from where they had gone to consult at around, say, 4:20 there. We were told, amen, you know, we have a good deal, we have a good news. And then we started joining hands in celebrating the good news. After we had left, we were told, yes, gentlemen, we want you, as a matter of urgency, to call off the strike now, so that we can discuss. Then we were surprised. Is that the good news? Why do you want us to call off the strike now? Because you must comply with the court order.
Let's speak about that court order.
Yes.
Because that was given early this week.
Yes.
And the courts said, number one, call off the strike.
Yes.
Negotiate, get back to the courts on the 15th of this month.
Yes.
And report back to the courts.
Yes.
What's the difficulty in that? Because that is what the country is not understanding now. What's the difficulty in that?
Very good. How I wish we had been served with that court order.
So you have not been served with a court order?
Until today, as I am here, and God is my witness, we have never been served with that court order.
What is this court order that the president then is talking about?
I don't know what it contains. And tomorrow, we intend to go to Oraro, to our advocates, to try to find out if they can ask for us a copy of that court order, so that we can also acquaint ourselves with the contents. So, actually, the court order to us, and we want to make it very clear, as teachers who understand the rule of law and who love the legal system in Kenya and who respect the judiciary, we would not have failed to respond or to comply with the court order if it was served on us.
Are you just not being difficult, Mr. Muzozili? It's not just not becoming difficult and giving the government a hard time.
No. This is a government that we participated in putting it in place. And so we would have a lot of prayers for it to succeed. So I cannot be party of a system that is creating difficulties for the same government I love and respect.
I must ask you this though.
Yes.
The government, and initially in this conversation it has been paralleled between the laptop projects and the money for teachers. And the comparison is that there's 54 billion for the laptop for kids, and there's nothing that has been in the budget for teachers. Where do you draw comparisons in this, in terms of looking at these strikes?
Actually, when we are talking about what we want, and I want to make it very clear, legal notice number 534 started way back in 1997. There was no laptop money. The only remaining issues that must be implemented have to be implemented. If the government, because of its development plans include other things like laptop, we are not at war. The government can go ahead, even if it proposes buying an aeroplane for every child in Kenya. We are not at war. But what we want is what is rightfully ours. Let them buy anything, aeroplanes, marine apparatus, anything. Because they have enough money. With 1.6 trillion, they can buy anything. But what we want is just what belongs to us. And we are doing this because in compliance with the Sara Serem Commission, which advised employers to complete payment of concluded CBAs or undertakings by 30th June. And so we had to be out to request that they also comply with a circular, which is a government circular. So in any case, we are helping the government to remind them that there are a few things that you have not done. Can you please do this so that we come to fresh negotiations?
About this court order still,
yes.
If tomorrow and if by some reason, this court order, you finally see it,
yes,
you intend to comply with it, because that court order expressly talks about you calling off the strike. Will you comply with that?
Have you seen it? Have you seen it?
We've been told. We hear about.
No. Let us be specific. Have you seen it?
But we were in the courts, and the magistrate herself read those.
Okay.
And you also watched
today or tomorrow, if the court order comes, we, the leadership of the Kenya National Union of Teachers, shall evoke our structures. One, we shall consult our lawyers to interpret to us the contents. Two, we shall invite the advice of the National Executive Council. We come and tell them this is what has come out of our struggle. Men, what is the way forward? Three, we shall let the teachers know what actually it contains and then seek direction. In that way, when we are advised the way we shall be advised, we shall comply.
But it's a very simple directive, Mr. Putuzili. If we are talking about the same thing,
yes.
Let's assume for a moment to talk about the very same thing. That the court is saying, for the interest of everyone, the parties, the children and the parents and the whole country, call off the strike, meet another court directive, discuss, and then report back to the court.
I want to explain in a very, very elaborate manner how a strike is called and how it is called off. One, the steering committee or the National Executive Council owns only a strike notice. That is, when we issue a strike notice for 7 days and the employer or any other person within that intervening period comes up with something that can restrain us or can restrain the strike activities from taking off, we, the leadership, have the ability to withdraw that notice or suspend. But the moment it goes out and the strike commences, it now becomes the property of the National Executive Council and the general membership. For us to call it off, we must call the National Executive Council, give them what we have, and inform the members that we are going to, this is the way we are going to go. But as an individual or as a members of the steering committee, both the chairman and I and the other 8, we do not have express mandate, express legal mandate or constitutional mandate from our constitution to be able to summarily call off a strike.
Finally for me, 30 seconds very quickly. Are teachers still on strike?
Yeah, teachers are on strike and we are urging them to remain on strike because that is the only way we were advised by the National Executive Council until such a time that the National Executive Council takes a decision. And tomorrow, if we come across and we shall make sure we get the court order to be able to seek for its interpretation, the National Executive Council shall be called and then a way forward will be.
Mutunzili?
Yes.
Kenya National Union of Teachers, Acting Secretary General.
Thank you.
You've spoken for the teachers. Thank you very much. Betty.
Thank you, Smart. And that hard stance by the NAT officials leads us to a big question tonight. And we ask, should the teachers heed the president's dialogue plea? Should the teachers heed to the president's dialogue plea? This, of course, is after Uhuru Kenyatta this afternoon made a plea to teachers, asking them to engage in dialogue so that the students can return to school. Send your yes or no response with a brief comment to the number 8040, and we'll sample your views during this newscast and give you the poll results at the tail end of this live news bulletin. Well, continuing with our coverage tonight to a follow-up of a dramatic but sad story that we aired last night. 50-year-old Cecilia Samoei caused drama in Kamagut area when villagers forcefully lowered her from a tree, claiming that she was attempting to commit suicide. Well, today, KTN's North Rift reporter Mercy Kandie visited her home just to reflect on yesterday's events. Here's the story.
Tuesday evening, and this was the talk of the village in Kamagut, Uasin Gishu County. Cecilia Samoei was forcefully taken down from this tree in what villagers saw as a suicide attempt, but not to her. We caught up with her after the dramatic Tuesday event. The load she carries is too heavy, she says. She has been trying to get a child for 30 years now, praying from her grass-thatched house every day. She then thought she would change the venue to get her prayers answered.
Nikikaa tu namna hii nasikia mwili yangu ni mzuri kweli, nitaweza kupata mtoto nikiomba Mungu, kwa sababu nilisikia kwa Biblia wakina Sara waliomba Mungu alipata mtoto.
The rope and sack she had with her on that day, she says, was to shelter her from the rain during the 5 days she would be on top of the tree. The pain and agony of being childless, only she knows too well. She tells me she visited a doctor in Eldoret and was told to buy medication that would help her. The abject poverty state she is in was a barrier to get good medication.
Nimetumia pesa nikienda hospitali, lakini unajua daktari aliambia mimi tumbo yako iko na watoto, tumbo yako ni mzuri, lakini iko kitu moja alifunga wewe kwa mishishi yako, ama naitwanga nini kwa Kiswahili. Akasema tafadhali uende ununue hii dawa alafu umeze alafu tuone tofauti. Nikikuja hakuna mtu alinunulia mimi hiyo dawa.
Her troubles became a reality when her husband of 23 years then married another wife with whom they now have 4 children.
Pika jioni silali yake. Mimi nasema sasa nikikaa hapa mimi ni bibi ya huyu ama mimi ni nini?
Jana nilipata komiti, hata mimi nilistuka, eleza yeye kwa nini ulifanya namna hiyo. Sema nilienda kuomba kwa miti kwa nakumbuka mtoto.
Cecilia tells me giving up is not an option because living alone is a constant reminder of her current state. Her husband spends most of the time with the other family.
Mimi nasema daktari unisaidie, daktari yake ile anajua nini tumbo ya mtoto.
And as every day comes to an end for Cecilia, she knows biologically it gets even more complicated. At 50, she waits for that day when the sad tune in her life will change. Hope can be described as the absolute expectation of good. Hope is what Cecilia Samoei has been clinging on to for over 30 years now. She hopes that one day she'll be able to carry a child of her own and be called mother. Mercy Kandie, KTN, Kamagut Village, Uasin Gishu County.
Tough times for Cecilia. We wish her the best. News just reaching KTN indicates that Nelson Mandela's family had been advised by doctors in Pretoria to switch off his life support machine. The latest developments come as the former South African president spent the 27th day in hospital. KTN's Asha Mulu is in South Africa and now joins us with the latest on Madiba's health.
Yes, thanks for joining us. Local media outlets here in South Africa tonight are breaking the news on the progress of the health of the anti-apartheid icon Nelson Mandela. The Star Times, for instance, which is a leading local daily, has published and is currently circulating a special feature on this breaking story. Reports indicate that the doctors seeing Mandela at the Mediclinic Heart Hospital in Pretoria have actually advised the Mandela family to switch off his life support machine. These reports have been based on legal documents that were filed in a South African court. In these documents, doctors have been quoted as saying that he is currently in a permanent vegetative state and that he is breathing via a life support machine. No official statement has been given by the presidency so far on those reports, but we understand that a statement could come tomorrow. The presidency here in South Africa has been handling the Mandela situation and has been giving journalists updates. So far, these continue to be reports, and we await official communication from the officials down here in South Africa. As this news developed, the family dispute currently being reported on about the Mandela family is deepening. Majority of the Mandela family assembled in Kunu for a burial ceremony of 3 Mandela children whose graves were exhumed yesterday in Mvezo, in a disputed graveyard, and taken back to Kunu. And we understand at this burial ceremony, Mandela is reported to have said that some of his family members were vengeful and that they were out to control the legacy of the anti-apartheid icon. A lot of South Africans that we are talking to here on the ground say they're actually disgraced and disgusted by this family feud that is ongoing and that is currently overshadowing the progress and the health of Nelson Mandela, as many South Africans continue to come at the Mediclinic Heart Hospital in Pretoria, where Nelson Mandela is currently admitted. From here in South Africa, we will be giving you the live updates, of course, on Nelson Mandela's situation as they break. Back to you in studio.
Thank you very much, Ashamulu in Johannesburg. Now, university graduate arrested for cultivating and using bang shocked residents of Kiambu in Nyeri County when he boldly told police officers that there was nothing wrong with using the banned substance. He openly praised marijuana, saying that it was immensely beneficial and highly misunderstood by many. KTN Central Kenya reporter Carol Nderi has that story from Nyeri.
Residents of Kiambu village in Nyeri County were treated to a rare spectacle yesterday when one man brazenly admitted to using marijuana and went on to announce before police officers present how bang had been beneficial to him. 28-year-old Kevin Mureithi was arrested at his rental house during a crackdown led by the Nyeri Administration Police County Commander Jacob Sohera and the Nyeri Deputy County Commissioner John Marete. Mureithi admitted the farm was not his, but saw nothing wrong with growing bang.
Sasa, unajua napanda mimea. Unaona huko kuna kasava, kuna mahindi, kuna viazi hapo. Lakini kwa sababu mimi natumia mpaka bangi, ndio maana imepatikana kwa shamba ile nalima.
To the utter dismay of the officers and the amusement of those gathered, he went on to praise the banned substance when asked why he used it.
Inanipatia nguvu. Mwili yangu yote kama ni processes zote, digestion, nini, si unajua mmesoma pia nyinyi, inazifanya, catalyze, zinaenda faster. Pia, kuthink.
And just when did he start using marijuana?
In a special day. Kutumia, nilianza 2004, December. That was my first time to puff. Yeah. Najua mimi nasema ukweli na si ati nini, nasema ukweli ndio ni sifu Mungu wangu.
The graduate of Moi University seemed act by the endless questions posed to him.
Ni hoji vizuri, yani ni kujibu swali specific. Sasa ukiniuliza swali general, knowledge niko na, mtaogopa. Ile time tutakaa na nyinyi enyewe mtakafu kuogopa. Nyinyi wote. Hata wale wananipiga mama whips.
And when someone asked him about his age for the second time,
ala, kwani hamkukua kini kwa darasa? Unajua si nimesema 28.
The officers leading the crackdown said it was a pity that drugs had ruined the youth.
This is a crackdown ambayo katika nchi yetu imetangazwa na rais wetu mheshimiwa.
Hii operation itaendelea mpaka tuone ya kwamba kuna usalama ili
wananchi wa Nyeri wanafanya kazi yao freely bila kuwa interrupted na insecurity.
Morethi, who was allegedly found with 10 rolls of bang, is expected to be arraigned in court today. Carol Derry for KTN at Kiambu in Nyeri County.
Comical but very sad
Well,
and unfortunate.
It's just what drugs can do. Absolutely.
Yes.
Very sad state.
All right, let's give you an update on that saga surrounding the death of Raphael Tuju, a love rival. A nephew to former Minister Cosmas Okoth-Opondo will be charged in court tomorrow over the death of Tony Ogunda. The late Ogunda was an alleged boyfriend of Tuju's wife, and the former minister had filed a divorce case citing infidelity.
Well, police suspect Cosmas Okoth could be one of the prime suspects in the murder of Tony Ogunda after post-mortem report revealed that Ogunda died from internal bleeding caused by a blow to the head from a blunt object.
Okoth was the last person seen with the deceased and is being held at the Kilimani police station. Detectives at the police station also questioned Tuju's wife for over 3 hours. Ruth Wanjare Akinyi arrived at the station for grilling at 2 p.m. and was released to go home a few minutes after 5 p.m.
Kilimani OCPD Bernard Moli says 5 people, including Tuju's wife, have recorded statements over the murder. He said everybody who has been mentioned in the love saga, including former Minister Raphael Tuju, would be questioned in a bid to get to the bottom of the matter.
The better part of the night is seen as if it was consumed with his colleague. We want to believe that he may not have escaped seeing any commotion if there was any. So we want to continue questioning him, and we may from now start treating him as one of the suspects, because if he had known of any incident that had occurred to the deceased, he ought to have informed the police. The wife to Mheshimiwa Tuju is also with us. She's going to give us a statement so that we clear doubts from whoever we think was close to the deceased.
A proposal by the United Kingdom to ban cut or Miraa is now causing jitters among farmers, traders and stakeholders in the Miraa business.
Well, Miraa traders say the ban, if effected, could cost them their livelihoods and their way of life.
Wilkis Nyabwa reports on the move that has left the traders with a lot to chew on.
Miraa traders in Meru give the bundles of Miraa one final pat before loading them onto the waiting trucks. The drivers anxious to deliver their precious cargo to vendors waiting in the city. And when the first trucks arrive, a well-orchestrated routine takes place. The traders identify the sacks of Miraa as they come off the trucks, and shortly thereafter, bundles of Miraa find their way into the hands of vendors. In a warehouse just meters away, packers are hard at work. Before the end of the day, they must prepare all the Miraa delivered today for export. If the packers and the vendors seem more anxious than usual, it could be attributed to the threat of a ban of cut in the United Kingdom. Britain, the only remaining European destination for the country's cut, has announced plans to ban the crop known as the green gold of Meru.
Ikienda nje inabakisha pesa ya tax ile na kolektiwa kutoka kwa Miraa hapa airport. Ni pesa mingi sana, pia nchi yetu itapoteza.
Watoto sisi nalipanga mpaka university. Nasikia watoto 20, watoto 10 mimi niko na yatima. Nasikia mpaka tata ona anasimamisha kazi yetu.
Every week, the traders send off over 100 tons of Miraa for export, but the market has shrunk in recent years. Netherlands banned the sale of Miraa in January, following in the footsteps of other European countries. The US and Canada have also outlawed trade in the crop, but the reasons are unclear. In banning the stimulant, the Dutch government cited noise, nuisance by Miraa users and littering as some of the reasons behind the decision. In the United Kingdom, though the Council on Misuse of Drugs argued that there was insufficient evidence that Miraa causes health problems, the Home Secretary decided to ban it, saying the risks posed may have been underestimated.
Mimi nimezaliwa ndani ya Miraa, nimelelewa nikikula Miraa hata nikiwa shule, na mpaka sasa sijawahi kuona madhara ya Miraa.
In the midst of all this, the country's Drug and Substance Abuse Agency now hard-pressed to take a stand on the question as to whether Miraa is a harmful substance.
The International Narcotics Control Board is going to include it as part of the Schedule 1 drugs that are supposed to be controlled. So that is the position. However, there is the other part of it. We as NACADA have no framework and we cannot ban.
For traders, the intended ban on Miraa in the UK means hundreds of packers, transporters and farmers now stand to lose their jobs as the green gold on which they have pegged their hopes loses its luster. Wilkinson Apo, KTN in Nairobi.
A lot to chew on indeed. To other news, the Mombasa Municipal Council strike entered a second day today, even as over 1,000 striking staff members were sacked. Mombasa Governor Ali Hassan Joho made good his threat, firing the staff who went on strike Wednesday over delayed pay. KTN's Edith Kimani has these details.
It is a dirty fight that began yesterday with claims of unpaid dues by Mombasa Council workers. The county staff downed their tools, littered the streets and demanded what was rightfully theirs from their governor, a governor who gave a sobering response.
Those that have not reported on duty, it is not legal and therefore action must be taken. Hawa watu wameshafutwa kazi kwa sababu wamefanya njia ambayo ni illegal.
Joho claims the strike was illegal because the workers did not have a legal notice which would authorize a strike and therefore those involved were absconding duty. 1,059 workers in all were laid off.
Penye moto asipawashe, apazime. Kwa sababu akipawasha, huu mgomo utatoka kutoka katika baraza, uingie mgomo wa mji. Na ukiingia mgomo wa mji, atakwenda.
As for their 2 months unpaid salaries,
those that have sent in their accounts shall be paid starting today, because really that was the arrangement.
Joho was however categorical that only those the council had cleared would be paid, as several ghost workers had been identified. As for the now vacant positions, the governor says the county will advertise for positions to replace the dismissed staff in due time. Edith Kimani, KTN Prime.
All right, members of parliament allied to coup coalition are working on amendment to the controversial VAT bill in an attempt to exempt more items from the proposed tax. The members, led by Suba MP John Badi and his Mvita counterpart Abdul Somad Sharif, say the decision by the government to remove only 2 items from the list of targeted basic commodities is not good enough. The MPs now want their colleagues in the Jubilee coalition to support the amendment when it is tabled on the floor of the House.
The bill in its current form cannot be passed. We will oppose it. But we are going to bring a comprehensive amendment. As Honorable Nazir has told you, I'm already working on those amendments. The Code Coalition tasked me yesterday to work on the amendments to make life better for Kenyans, the life which is almost being made worse by the Jubilee Coalition government.
It is now talking about putting taxes on medicines. So if you're someone who is diabetic, the insulin is now going to be vatable.
Now, senators have today told their National Assembly counterparts to go easy on misunderstandings arising from the roles of the two houses.
While speaking during a breakfast meeting with journalists this morning, the senators said the National Assembly is taking the misunderstanding too far by handling the issues as if the two houses were in a supremacy war.
Our senior parliamentary reporter Aaron Ocheng is keeping an eye on that contest of the houses.
The Senate is downplaying the push and shove it is having with the National Assembly, saying the Constitution implementation is at the infancy stage and commotions on the different roles that various institutions will play was bound to happen. Besides that, the Senate feels their counterparts in the National Assembly are treating the misunderstanding as a war between the two chambers of Parliament, something that the Senate feels ought not to happen. Speaking during a media breakfast meeting at a Nairobi hotel, various senators led by their Speaker Ekwe Othuro say the common denominator in all undertakings of all institutions is sticking to the Constitution.
You know, read the Constitution. You don't need to be told by anybody. Not our communications from the chair will inform you. Read for yourself.
Shida iliyoko sio ni nani mkubwa kuliko mwingine. Shida iliyoko kati yetu na bunge ni kwamba kuna majukumu matatu. Moja iko na serikali kuu na ingine iko na serikali ya county. Iliyobaki iko katikati ndio jukumu la Senate.
So that interlink between and also linking what would happen in the National Assembly and what happens in the Senate and linking it to how government is run is very, very important.
The Senate and the National Assembly have been at loggerheads ever since the National Assembly ignored the Senate's input to the Division of Revenue Bill 2013 that was signed into law by the President. The disagreement is now being adjudicated upon in the Supreme Court, where the Senate has sought an advisory opinion. The interpretation will be decided upon by a two Supreme Court judge bench appointed by Registrar of Supreme Court Lucy Njora. The Senate, through their lawyer Feroz Norji, had requested the court to stop the National Assembly from tabling and passing any bills pending the hearing of the case. The Senate claims the passage of bills without their consultation is unconstitutional. Aaron Ocheng, KTN.
Well, Egypt's Chief Justice Adli Mansour has been sworn in as the country's interim president just a day after the military ousted President Mohamed Morsi. President Uhuru Kenyatta joined world leaders in condemning the coup. Najma Ismail reports.
The swearing-in ceremony of Adli Mansour was conducted in the Egyptian Supreme Constitutional Court and was broadcast live on national television. The 67-year-old judge said the Egyptian people had given him the authority to amend and correct the 2011 revolution. Morsi, who is a member of Egypt's Islamist movement, the Muslim Brotherhood, was arrested by presidential guards at their headquarters and is currently being held under house arrest. Army Chief General El-Sisi said Morsi did not achieve the goals of the people during his single year in office. The world has reacted to the situation in Egypt and several leaders have condemned the overthrow. Here in Kenya, President Uhuru Kenyatta had this to say.
The African Union has a very clear position on coup d'etats. Secondly, we did have an elected government, elected through a due democratic process. So what is happening currently in Egypt is indeed a matter of grave concern.
U.S. President Barack Obama on his part urged a quick return to an elected civilian government.
Democracy is not just about elections. It's also about how are you working with an opposition.
A statement on the Egyptian presidency's Twitter account quoted Morsi as saying the military's announcement was rejected by all free men. It also called on Egyptians to avoid shedding blood. However, reports indicate that at least 10 people have so far been killed and more than 200 others injured after protests erupted across Egypt. Najma Ismail, KTN Prime.
And following the developments in Egypt, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has this evening issued a statement condemning the acts of violence. The government is also advising Kenyan citizens in Egypt to be cautious and those intending to travel to the North African country to defer their plans for the time being. Well, Kiambu Governor William Kabogo says he will prioritize unemployment in his agenda for the county. Speaking during a meeting with Standard Group CEO Sam Shuley, who paid him a courtesy call at his Thika office, Kabogo said he would partner with foreign investors so as to raise funds that that enable him create job opportunities for the youth.
This is the place where people want to come and build because there is space. Nairobi, there is no space. So you will find scrabble for property, real estate, even as small as 40 by 40 is something that is lucrative now in Kiambu. And you will see I have stopped as governor issuance of approvals for building on share certificates because people are going and giving share certificates. These are things you print from River Road, and you come and con people and they buy land. You put all your savings in land, and then you build a house on somebody else's property who is an absentee landlord.
And now to our weekly Thursday series, Frontier. And tonight we are focusing on environmental conservation as the ravaging effects of global warming become a real threat to the existence of mankind. There is a real need for the situation to be remedied before it's too late. The late Nobel laureate Professor Wangari Maathai relentlessly called for the conservation of the environment as this is the only way to safeguard the future. In tonight's Frontier, our reporter Carol Nderi visited the famous Ewasonyiro River that is a pale shadow of its former self.
The drums of a global warming and its devastating effects have been beaten sore by environmentalists for a long time now. That the snow covering Mount Kenya has slowly diminished is alarming at the very least. However, it is a sign of just how precarious things have become. Still, we weren't prepared for what we saw on our journey through Isiolo to Samburu and finally Marsabit. Rivers in different stages of drying. This is Ngarimara River here in Isiolo County. By the stones you see, an indicator of a river that once was and largely depended by many. At Sirimon, we noticed that the water levels are really low and crossing from one end to the other is akin to child's play. Yet, this is not the dry season, so the low levels are puzzling. At the border of Isiolo and Samburu stands the famous Ewasonyiro River. But it does not boast of the volume of water it once did. The little children waddle about oblivious of the changes. And although it swells up during rainy seasons, the Morans we spoke to say it just does not rain as much as it used to. That alone to them is a sign of trouble ahead.
Wakati tulikuwa na mvua mingi, wakati huo ndio tunaona maji ikiwa mingi kwa Rigaga. Na shota changa mpaka akutie maji. Maji naenda nakuta mtu mmoja ingie ndani mpaka kwa mtu tatu hivi, ine hivi.
Only when it rains does the seasonal river Lerata in Samburu fill up, and since it hasn't in a while, these goats seen here in search of water wander, perhaps baffled by the lack of water in their favorite watering hole. From the partially dry river Ngarimara in Isiolo County to this completely dry river Lerata here in Samburu County, and as environmentalists would argue, this is a tragedy in waiting that is likely to have a trickle-down effect on those who depend on it.
Sisi ni mwezi wa 4 tunapata mvua ya mwezi mmoja, lakini kwa sasa siku hizi hakuna, ni kitu ambaye inanyesha kwa wiki moja tu inaisha, inasaulika.
The goats belong to 36-year-old Gregory Lesekwet. He's lived here all his life. He too does not understand why it does not rain as much as it used to, and he often has to make a 20-kilometer trip to and fro in search of the precious commodity for his herd of goats, a symbol of wealth amongst pastoralists.
The pastoralists, nomadic pastoralists, are mainly affected, and I think Laikipia has got Laikipia is which is neighboring Isiolo and neighboring Samburu. I think is the main area where the main source of conflict will be really realized, because you see there are
southward movement to Laikipia, there's an upward movement to Laikipia, and there's always an increasing demand.
And while people in cities assume that the exposed riverbeds in places far away from them doesn't affect them, they couldn't be more wrong.
We're trying to encourage communities to shift lifestyles, the traditional livelihoods, to things like beekeeping.
We are planning to do a camel caravan for advocacy purposes. We've seen that the voice of the people is not really heard.
The biting water shortage in large cities such as Nairobi can be attributed to the devastating effects of global warming such as this. Cutting of trees for charcoal and other uses has had far-reaching consequences.
The grass cover, there's no trees are being cut. You've seen loads and loads of charcoal being transported to Nairobi. That one creates an open space. It increases the runoff during the rainy season, and that's what actually increases the intensity of floods.
It is a ripple effect, as what happens upstream trickles downstream. Changes, for example, in Mount Kenya will affect all the rivers that are dependent on it.
Hiyo maji inasaidia sana na wanafaa wahifadhi mazingira, ndo maana ijikuze ndio iwasaidie kwa leo na kwa muda ijayo.
You sit somewhere in Nairobi enjoying your nyama choma, but you don't know that the charcoal that you are using for nyama choma is actually from the areas, the dryland, the rangelands.
While environmentalists continue to put their heads together in search of a permanent solution, the situation at hand is a wake-up call for all and sundry, because dry riverbeds today mean dry throats tomorrow. Carol Derry for KTN in Samburu County.
Now, it will be difficult for fraudsters to have unauthorized access to one's bank account or even use a stolen plastic card. Now, this is due to the entry of a new improved anti-fraud technology that is being introduced in the country at a time when fraud is at an all-time high, with local banks being accused of keeping the public in the dark regarding the attacks on their accounts.
In December 2012, Standard Chartered Bank was all over the news as customers complained over fraudulent withdrawals from their bank accounts. The attack left the bank exposed and customers terrified over the safety of their hard-earned cash. Currently, little or no information is available on the extent of ATM fraud in Kenya banking industry, but CBK governor admits this is a headache in the sector.
The ATM frauds, for example, robbery, and we have seen statistics, very stuttering statistics. Of course, I wouldn't want to dwell on those because we don't want them to create fear.
Annually, it is estimated that over 4 billion shillings is lost in the East African region financial sector through ATM fraud. It is out of this that the industry regulator says individual institutions must be alive to risk involved in the trade.
The infrastructure you have through the ATMs you already have a little bit aged, okay? And so it's a combination of many phenomena happening.
Proponents believe that the migration of ATM machines, credit and debit cards to the global standards known as Europay, MasterCard and Visa system EMV compliant chips and PIN technology will significantly whittle down card fraud and white-collar crime. But this, just like all the other technologies before it, is open to debate. Philip Keitan, KTN Business Today.
You see, the border post of Malaba is the umbilical cord that connects 6 of Kenya's landlocked neighbors to the rest of the world through trade links. Now, as KTN's Fred Omulo visited Malaba and brings us some of the nuances that determine the nature of the East African regional trade.
Stakeholders at the Malaba border post revealed that the periodic congestions that has attracted the attention of the president has an interesting benefit to the local economy. Whenever trucks pile up at the border, local businesses experience a boom in trade as transporters rest in the town.
One of these government people can be coordinate maybe Malaba and Bungoma. Maybe as a business in Bungoma that he wants his business to benefit these people, and that's the cause of the whole thing. It is a conflict of interest.
Reliable sources within the Kenya Revenue Authority reveal that the local community is not keen on seeing the president's cargo clearance directive implemented. Well, this is one of those instances in which President Kenyatta is damned if he does and damned if he doesn't. On the one hand, congestion at this border post boosts thousands of local businesses, but on the other hand, efficiency improves the East African economy. The current systems also force clearing and forwarding agents to deal with the mountain of paperwork as they shuffle around in search of the all-important government stamps.
If they feel taxes which you have paid are the right ones, they will pass the entry. After the entry has been passed, you are supposed now to move from one office to office to present those copies for them to check. Are they the right documents so that they keep on endorsing?
The Kwato system that processes cargo for the Kenya Ports Authority in Mombasa and the Simba system that KRA uses to collect revenue are set for integration into a single window system under KenTrade that will enable all stakeholders to conduct their verifications online, greatly reducing the burden of paperwork. From Malaba in Busia County, I am Fredo Mulo.
Now, CFC Life has launched a payment plan for high school fees as tourism sector players prepare to cash in on wildebeest migration. This and more on the corporate roundup.
ACB has partnered with a community-based organization, VSO Jitole, to set up a vocational center to boost agribusiness in Matinyani, Kitui County. The center, once upgraded, will seek to support unemployed youth in the area with basic skills in agricultural development. The Matinyani Vocational Center has been in existence since 1980, providing technical skills in carpentry, masonry, food processing, cloth technology, and hairdressing. Elsewhere, tourism operators in the Masai Mara Game Reserve are gearing up for the lucrative business as tourists flock the area for the annual wildebeest migration. The millions of animals are expected to cross over the Masai Mara anytime now from the Serengeti National Park in the neighboring Tanzania. The wildebeest migration is a key calendar event for Kenya's tourism, expected to rake in millions of shillings. Finally, CFC Life has unveiled the CFC Karo plan designed to cover the cost of future years of schooling for both primary and secondary school children. In the event of the insured parent passing away, now the plan provides cover for one parent per child attending a partnering school, with the parent being able to be covered for up to 4 children in a school. The plan allows an eligible parent who has a child attending a participating school to be covered. The CFC Karo plan is calculated as a percentage of the school fees and will be included in the school fees charged.
The National Rugby 15s team has a tall order in following and bettering the performance of the 7th side. The team that is scheduled to take part in the Confederation of African Rugby Class 1A next week in Antananarivo, Madagascar, will be seeking to qualify for the World Cup in 2015, but their performance in the highest level of the competition will determine their fate.
For a very long time now, the National 15s team has been in the shadows of the 7's counterparts and the upcoming CAR Class A1 tournament in Madagascar coming days after the 7th side reached the semi-finals of the World Cup in Moscow. Pressure will be on the 15s team to match or better their performance in 2015. But first, they must qualify. And the match in Madagascar on the 7th of July will form the basis of their dream. The team has been in camp after a short break from Elgon Cup win. South African coach Jerome Parwaters has been overseeing the turn-up, which sometimes spilled over to late evening. Optimism is written all over their faces as they await to conquer the Indian Ocean Islanders on the 10th and 14th of July. The team will be focusing not to drop points and lose Division A1 status this year, as next year's championship will serve as 2015 Rugby World Cup qualifier.
This time we began our trainings early. We began all our program, 15th training program early. And as you've seen, we also tried to demarcate the difference between the 15th and the 7th.
The Kenya-Uganda rivalry will again be renewed when they meet in the first semi-final on Wednesday, 10th of July. This will be the 3rd time the two teams are meeting in a month. Kenya having emerged overall winners of the Elgon Cup. Inclusion of some 7's players will be considered due to the need of pace on the wings.
Only our advantage was that we started very early in the year. About January, we were training already, so over time, we've gone to blend as a team. We gel very well, actually.
As early as 5 a.m., we do our conditioning, that is from 5 to 7:30 in the morning. With the reason that we believe when you do an early training program, there's less distraction.
The team to the match in Madagascar will be named on Friday.
All right, Kenya retained its position 123 in the current FIFA rankings released today. Brazil, who won the Confederations Cup, climbed back to the top 10. The former 5-time world champions, who had plummeted to a record low 22nd and spent exactly 1 year outside the top 10, are now 9th. Meanwhile, Harambee Stars coach Adel Amruche insists that he will not push the Stars to win the COSAFA championships, but he wants it to help in exposing players who have no international experience.
Despite calling 5 foreign-based players for this COSAFA tournament in Zambia, none of them are in camp at the Moi Sports Center, Kasarani. Amrushe called David Geteri, Brian Mandela, Johanna Omolo, Jomal Mohamed and Joaquin Satudo for their maiden appearance in the Council of Southern African Football Association's COSAFA football tournament, which gets underway in Zambia on Saturday. He is now calling on the federation to act tough on players who abscond national duty to deter others from following suit.
She starts now the tradition. We start with Ayub Ntimbe. We don't give, because if we put this player, we tell him 1 year suspension or 2 years. Maybe we give good example for the other players, but we do not think, no.
The national team broke its residential camp Thursday to allow players rejoin their clubs for this weekend's Premier League fixtures.
My objective to build this team to the next African Cup. This is our objective.
Harambee Stars are pulled in Group B together with Botswana, Lesotho and Swaziland, and will play their matches in Zambia's largest city of Kitwe. Kenya plays their opener on Tuesday against Botswana. Reporting for KTN Sports Today, I'm Hassan Juma.
Rally enthusiasts will, for 3 days beginning tomorrow, be entertained as the 61st KCB Safari Rally revs off. The rally will be flagged off at 9 a.m. and not at 1 p.m. as earlier planned, but the organizers say the rest of the rally plans remains unchanged. The International Automobile Federation officials are already in the country to assess the country's readiness to welcome back the World Rally Championships flag off. The rally cars will head to the Jamhuri Park, where the spectator stage is based, and the competition for the opening day ends at the kick. Now, the second day will take the drivers to the Pipeline, Olepolos Corner, Baridi, Kajiado, Isinya, Konza, Andes Corner, Orient, and All Kejuado. The final day on Sunday will take the drivers to Ilpisil, Parane, which is the longest stage, covering 84 kilometers, Isinya, Konza, Andes Corner, and finally they will be back in Nairobi at 3:30 p.m. 41 drivers are competing in the main rally, with Carl Flash Tundo, the defending champion, navigated by Tim Jesop, seeking to retain the title.